Conversations for change. Because the world is ready. I've been circling around this concept and this idea for weeks now. It keeps recurring in my day-to-day experience. I keep finding myself in the position of giving myself the opportunity to choose, and the choice that I've been reaching for over these last weeks is the choice truly for the highest and best for all. The highest and best for all concerned in any situation. And what I'm coming to realize the more I think about it, which is a lot, I've thought about it a lot, is that it's possible that this choice is the next logical step in the evolution of consciousness in living systems. In other words, in order for us to evolve to the next level in our living system, we each have to come to terms with finding a way to truly choose the highest and best for all concerned in every situation we encounter. And that's a big ask. I was going to say, ask me how I know. Yeah. But when we come to really look at it and think about it deeply and examine it closely, specifically in situation after situation, what we come to understand is that it is only through this choice that we set ourselves and everybody else free. And it is only through this choice that we completely let go of our ego attachment to fear and doubt that the outcome that we allow through this choice will not serve us. Because after all, the highest and best for all includes us. But that's a very big trust issue for most of us. And most of us are not anywhere close to making that our moment by moment, day by day choice in life. And what I'm going to suggest is that the sooner we do, the better everything gets. In fact, the first time this came to me, I was standing up on the hill in the nursery. And it literally just came into my head. When you choose the highest and best for all concerned, everything else takes care of itself. And now it's been rolling around up there in my head for 6 or 7 weeks. And I keep finding myself bumping up against it in my day-to-day life. As I encounter things that I would assume from my ego perspective are not for my highest and best, are confrontatory to my perspective of what is highest and best for myself. And I practice the art of letting go of my attachment to a specific outcome and simply surrender. And surrender the entire experience, event, or circumstance, whatever it is, to this idea. And what it's teaching me, and what I think it's showing me moment to moment, is that this really is the nature of how nature and life itself functions. I'm very big on regenerative systems. I love the idea of allowing nature to help us to accomplish all the things we want to accomplish, whether it's growing food or building a forest or a garden or healing the planet. And what I discover the further I go down those roads and those pathways, as I make biochar and mix in minerals and worm castings and worm tea and fish hydrolysate and all the things that I gather through my experience in life and put them into these soils around me and into my garden beds, is that life takes over in a way that is completely unexpected and way beyond anything I've ever accomplished through my own efforts of trying to manipulate and coerce life to grow in garden beds. When I give the basic raw materials of life into the garden gives me back 100-fold what I expect. And it does it without me doing any more work. Once the garden has all the tools it needs and all the resources that serve it and that give it the little bacterias and the microbes and the nematodes, everything else takes care of itself. Just the same way that when I surrender to the highest and best for all, everything else takes care of itself. And I've seen it in so many miraculous ways these last weeks as I've been walking through my life, particularly this time of year, because this is the time of year when I am planting seeds sort of like a maniac. I am completely addicted to planting flowers for the bees. And so I spend a lot of time watching tiny life forms come into being. And it's always miraculous to me that I can take a packet of seeds and get them started on a tray and give them some moisture and a little bit of starting medium and a lot of love and a little heat and the light in the greenhouse. And before you know it, I have trays and trays and trays, little miniature jungles everywhere of greenery. And before this season is over, which will be in a few months from now, all of those beautiful little miniature jungles will be planted out all over this property and turning into beds of zinnias and marigolds and calendula and sweet alyssum and lavender and echinacea and, oh, there are so many. There are so many. Dozens and dozens of them. And all of these beautiful colors will be covering the landscape. And all of these beautiful colors will be full of bees and butterflies and all kinds of native pollinators and all kinds of creatures. Whether it's the marshmallows out in the native garden strips or the chicories up on the hillside, there will be blossoms of every color everywhere. And all it takes to get that all happening are these little tiny packets of seeds. And the willingness. And over the years, the learning of the system of how nature prefers to support itself. Compost. Lots of compost. And all of this, day after day, shows me again and again as I walk through these fields, as I go up the hill and sit under the trees and watch the perennials coming back up out of the ground, and watch the culinary sages filling up with new leaves in spring, and watch the rosemaries bursting into bloom in February and March, just when the bees need them the most on those warm, sunny days. All of this talks to me, speaks to me of the regenerative resilience, of the innate understanding, of the internally driven nature of nature. And I started thinking about some of the concepts that surround this, because I think this idea of us moving to the highest and best for all as a consciousness, as a species, some people are saying now that we could step into the role of keystone species. And it's a good way of thinking about it. There have certainly been humans on this planet who took that role seriously and who played it beautifully, who brought the wildflowers to life everywhere, who encouraged life everywhere, and who supported life in all its forms everywhere. And part of going to that level of support of life is stepping inward and trusting that that life sustains us equally well. Because it requires trust to go to the place of surrendering to the highest and best for all. It requires letting go of the idea that there's something more right that I know that must happen in order for things to be okay. The other thing it requires us to do is let go of judgment. And maybe that's the most difficult, actually. Because I can't hold somebody in contempt and desire the highest and best outcome for them at the same time. And contempt is something that has been so ingrained in our culture as to be normalized now. Even to the extent that we express it openly in our social discourse all over the place. Like a bad dream, really. We see people simply allowing themselves to regurgitate reactive anger and insult and injury. We see people willing to degrade themselves in the way that they speak to others, with no actual sense, in fact, at least I believe, with no actual sense that it's themselves they're degrading through their actions. And we see it rampantly in our social structure as all of these systems designed to control and compress and contain the creative life force of humanity begin to unravel. And maybe that's why people say you need to go into nature to find peace and to find your center and to come back to wholeness. Because wholeness is our nature, and we only get to observe it when we can step out of the noise of judgment and fear. We only get to feel it when we can step into the calm of a peaceful, self-regulated nervous system. And we can only find that when we find forgiveness and peace within ourselves. So in a way, the entire autogenesis of nature and the whole concept of a self-restoring or directed from within system of regeneration is an abject lesson for us about the nature of our own consciousness. But until we can find the quiet within us, we have a very difficult time identifying with the quiet we find in nature. Until we can calm the raging tide of emotion and sense of injustice or wrongdoing that we see when we look out into our own culture, until we can rein that in to the place where we can surrender ourselves to allowing the highest and best for all to surface, we can't believe in it. We don't believe it's possible. We can't trust it. And I think maybe the reason I'm able to even contemplate these ideas and think about them and have the experiences that I have is that I spend enough time outdoors, particularly this time of year, on the land, in the sun, with my hands in the dirt. And it changes me. It reminds me what matters. And there's no place I would rather be. Literally, there is no place I would rather be. And so when the wind comes up through the trees, and I'm standing at the top of the hill, and I can smell the ocean, I'm home. And I feel at home. And my heart is at peace. And I can trust the world around me. And the little things don't get in the way. The little things become the little treasures and the little joys because my heart opens. And so I can appreciate and I can feel into these moments. I can watch the woodpeckers moving through the firs up above the fence line. I can hear the Steller's jays driving away the crows and reminding everybody that this is their territory. Or the chickadees filling the bushes where the last of the winter seeds are still hanging on. And all of it reminds me that the world is in order, that life knows exactly what to do, that everybody has their space and their life exactly as they need it to be for them to continue in it. And so I move about and I make my little improvements here and there. I bring in my compost and my plantings. I put out my kale plants and my onions. I start my early peas and my potatoes and carrots. And I watch the sky. And the sky says the same thing to me. It's safe. Trust. The highest and best for all is the highest and best. And it includes you. And it includes all life. And when we make our choices this way, We choose differently. When we move plants around in the garden, we don't just rip out the ones that were there that are not serving our purpose. We dig them up and move them. At least I do. I spend more time moving plants than I do planting plants this time of year. Or restoring the places where plants are needing some assistance. Where winter rains and squirrels have degraded the soil around their roots. I nurture and I nourish those things that matter to me. Whether it's a baby maple tree or an accidentally uncovered mouse nest in the field. Highest and best for all. And when that cycle and that circle is followed, we end up in a place where the systems of life are self-organizing, are self-restorative, are self-regenerative. We have homeostasis, where things find balance on their own, naturally, as a way of being, as a quality of the life that they are. And we move from there right into self-regenerative, where life can move in ways that restore itself back to wholeness after storms, after fires. Life never stops in this process because it's driven from within. It's seeking wholeness, always. It's life seeking life. And when we come from that place, we let go of the ego self that needs to control life, especially that part of it that needs to control others. And we learn the fine art of controlling ourselves, of healing ourselves, of digging deep when those reactions or triggers happen and learning to see them clearly enough that we can actually release them and move on. And so in that way we become self-regenerative, self-restoring, self-healing. And in that way we include ourselves in that seeking for the highest and best for all. And for many of us, that work is the work we really need to be doing now. That inner work, that work of looking at how we talk to and treat ourselves. And I remember several years ago having a conversation in my mind with a dear friend of mine who is no longer among the living. And she said to me, she asked me, would I ever say any of the things I had just said to myself in my mind to her? And I was horrified. No, of course not. I would never. And she said to me, well, do us both a favor then and stop saying them to yourself. In fact, every time you think of something you want to say to yourself, put me in your place. I can tell you it changed the way I talk to myself. And it changed it fast. Because every time I thought some derogatory thought to myself, I thought of her. And I couldn't do it. I loved her far too much to ever speak to her that way. When we learn to love ourselves that much, maybe then we will learn to truly choose the highest and best for all. The highest and best for all concerned, no matter what. And then the rest really will take care of itself.